glad you're here. Stay a while, pull up a chair. You've got stories, we've got them too. Welcome to the Revel Room. Welcome to the Revel Room. Welcome to the Revel Room. Revel, revel, room, room, room. Welcome, welcome, bloom, bloom, bloom. Welcome to the Revel Room. Woo! Hi, my name is Chrissy, and this is the first episode of the Revel Room, my new podcast that I've probably been wanting to do for years. So I'm excited to finally be here recording this first episode. I'm actually sitting here in Reveluna, one of the businesses that I own. And even how we came to have the title Reveluna is I also own B1 Yoga right next door. And we love all things the moon and universe and astrology. And then Revel is this idea of enjoyment and joy and conversation. And so it came together like, let's bring joy, conversation, community under all things that we love of the moon with Reveluna. And so Revel Room is that same idea, conversation, joy, bringing things to life. And then room, I wanted to use a word that creates a safe space, a container for where we want to talk and bring things together. So Revel Room. Like, let's bring everything that we want to talk about here to this safe space. And to me, I live my life in this whole idea of cards on the table. Let's talk about everything and anything. We shouldn't have any of our cards hidden. We can, but a lot of times it's, because we don't feel safe to talk about it. And once we start the conversation, we realize how much so many other people are craving that exact same thing, just honesty and to be able to put their cards out there. And so that's the idea of this podcast. And it's going to be me sharing my story and thoughts and ideas, and also me bringing on friends to talk and other businesses to talk and strangers to talk, like so that we can all hear each other's stories. Coming to this first episode, I've been thinking a lot about what I wanted to talk about or why you would even want to tune in and listen to me. And honestly, I feel like this whole idea of all of us having stories to share is the basis of Revel Room. And some of you that don't know me, I lost my husband about 2 years ago this month, actually. And I created a page when I lost him called Grief and Gratitude. It was on Instagram, and it was my way of beginning the healing process. Because to me, just talking and sharing my story and connecting with others and hearing their stories was, that first step. There's this quote on Ted Lasso. I love that show. And it says, there's something worse than being sad, and that's being alone and sad. And there's not one of us in this room that's alone. And that was something that I kind of held on to when I was going through my healing journey. And I'm still on my healing journey. I'll be on my healing journey for the rest of my life. But anyways, connecting with others just really started to mean something to me. And then also hearing their stories. And I know some people expected that if I was going to do a podcast, it would probably be all about grief and gratitude. But the thing is that grief is woven into everything. And so is gratitude, but there's such a bigger story to tell than just that story. And honestly, I've been wanting to use my voice and share for even longer than that. So I guess to me, as you get to know me, I'm someone who is an open book, and I love to dive deep with people right off the bat, right? Like, what's your story? That's always my question. Like, I want to know people's stories. And so this is just a place where we're going to do that. And as I was thinking about this first episode, I thought about a word that my friend Christina shared with me called sonder. And I'm going to read you this quote about sonder that really stuck with me. Everyone you meet carries a universe inside of them. The stranger sitting across from you on the train, the barista who handed you your coffee, and the colleague who seemed distracted in today's meeting. Each of them is living a life as vivid, complicated, and fragile as your own. They have memories they replay, ambitions they chase, fears that keep them awake at night, and people they would do anything for. To you, they may be background characters, but in their story, they are the lead. This realization is described as sonder, and it reminds us that the world does not orbit around us, and yet we are bound together in an invisible web of shared humanity. When you understand this, kindness, love, and compassion stop being optional. And I think where that really stuck with me is honestly one of the things I remember even saying after I lost my husband was I felt like someone who was a witness to my life was no longer there. And, you have my memory is awful. And he was the one who kind of remembered the details. And all of a sudden I'd want to ask a question and I couldn't, right? And I felt like I lost this witness to who I was in my adulthood and, raising of the children and all these things. And that reminded me that that's kind of this idea that all of us want, is the idea to be seen. And then I was scrolling on Instagram about something, and this guy was talking about how it used to be that we all sat by the fire. We sat by the fire, we'd tell our stories. This was before technology and all the things that kept us in our own houses or separate from each other. And that was how we were able to be witnesses to each other's lives, all these fireside stories that we all, want to share and hear from one another, because it's another way to witness, to be seen. There's so many things that separate us in our humanness, but no matter what, we crave connection. It's why my businesses revolve around connection and community. It's why I want to speak to you. It's why I want to hear from you. And this idea of sonder. And I remember after I even learned this word more, I was on a walk on Grandview and looking in the houses and realizing, oh my gosh, every single one of these houses, there's an entire universe taking place in there. There's an entire story unfolding. And that's such a good reminder. And even when it's separate, it does affect all of us. It's all connected, right? Because what's going on in my life is going to affect the people I engage with. It's going to affect the people they engage with. It's this butterfly, right? The flapping wing butterfly theory, that all the energy we put out there, the work we do on ourselves, the conversations we have, it flaps out into the universe. So we're all inside our own little universes, but yet all vastly connected. And I want Sonder, that idea, to be a part of this Revel Room podcast. So telling you a little bit more about me, because I'm hoping that there's going to be a lot of people who find this podcast that have no idea who I am. So I was born and raised in Southern California. I lived there until I was about 19, and I moved to Dubuque, Iowa, thinking it was going to be temporary. That's a whole other story. But one of the magical pieces of that story is that when I went back to California and knew I was coming to Iowa, I literally packed up everything and left within a 2-week span. And there were so many little nuggets that the universe was sending me as I was coming here that even though I had no idea what I was doing, it all fell so much into place. And I feel like even from a young age, I've believed in those ideas of our connection to something bigger. Some of us at B1 Yoga, we use the term GUS, God, universe, spirit, whatever you believe in, right? Just something bigger than outside of us. It's amazing when we're in alignment and we're following our path or listening to that inner compass, where some of those signs come. So I know that's always been a part of me. So you'll definitely hear, as I'm talking, you'll hear me, we call it the woo. I know I always throw the woo in there, believing in things bigger than us. I also have an extensive yoga background. I own B1 Yoga. So I think you're not going to be able to listen to my podcast without ideas of yoga or the philosophies of yoga coming through too, right? It's kind of who I am. And then, like I mentioned, I love doing all things with community. So I love events. Here at Reveluna, we have smoothies, cocktails, mocktails. We have live music. We do events. We have a shop. And we try to create a place for people to come and feel like they're safe and that they belong. And that's what we try to do at B1 too, is when you walk in, hey, we're happy to see you. And so I think you're going to get those pieces of me. Besides that, I have been a teacher on and off for years. I love students. I love working with youth. I'm a mom. I have 3 kids, 24, 17, and 13. You'll hear about them. I'm sure I'll hear about it if I say too much about them, right? Because they're all at those ages. But they're my world. I did become a single mom with Caden when I was 21. And, I'll talk about all parts of that story. And when I met Brandon, that's my husband who passed away, he adopted Caden. So we've been navigating our journey. I have older kids as a widow, and yet I think I'm also considered young to be a widow, right? So there's all different pieces of that that have been woven in. And, another part of my healing journey is finding love again. So I'm going to share those parts of my story as well with you. I'm a huge animal lover. I have 4 dogs, 4 cats. I know that sounds crazy. I'm surprised I don't have a farm, but I live in the city, right? So I can't have a farm yet. I love being outside. I love sunshine. I do love Iowa because I love the community and the connection, but I still crave a little bit more sunshine and ocean. So we'll see where the next journey takes me eventually, right? But I feel like it's really hard to not be completely authentic and honest, even when I don't know how that's going to land with people, because I feel like it's so important for all of us to speak our truth. And yoga, honestly, the practice, and not just the asana, the poses with it, but the philosophies with it, how we live our life and being present in the moment and how we can heal, all of that, I truly feel like saved me in a way after losing my husband. And a little bit more about that is I didn't just lose him suddenly. He had an autoimmune disease called primary sclerosing cholangitis, and it's where the body attacks itself essentially, and it was a liver disease. So through our 19 years of marriage, he was sick through all of them, and I was there while he went through 3 liver transplants, and he didn't come home with us after the 3rd one. So, part of my story is also being a caretaker and what that's like, and the way I see caretakers and ways that other people, sometimes it's a little bit hard when you're the caretaker. It's really easy to see the one who's struggling with the illness, but the caretakers and the family have their whole story as well. And I want to bring and talk about that. So that's kind of pieces of me. And I'm sure I'm going to think of more ways to describe who Chrissy is as this podcast unfolds. And whenever you're hearing this podcast or when it comes to life, the timing of this first episode, to me, is 100% the way that it should be. It's completely aligned. I, like I said, have talked about it for years, finally dove into it, and then even waited to record this first episode. And I'm realizing that I'm in the month of May, 2 years to when my husband passed. He died May 26th. And the different things that have been coming up with me lately is, realizing once again, as we talk about this idea of Sonder and knowing each other's stories, is how easy it is to assume things. And I will share that becoming a widow had a lot of aspects to it that I had no idea of. Obviously, there's no book that comes with it. And everyone's story is so unique and individual that even though you can take pieces from one another and connect with one another, you can't just get the answers from one another necessarily because the stories are unique. And I heard that, it's really easy for people to be there in the beginning, but then life does go on for people. And honestly, when loss first happens, you feel like life is fast forwarding around you and you're trying to just figure out, you're in slow motion, wondering why life can't just stop or pause for a second. And you're feeling like you're in slow motion while the world is sped up around you and trying to just grasp your footing again. And sure, there's the stuff of that you don't think of where all the paperwork that you have to do and the phone calls you have to make and everything that everyone starts demanding of you the day after someone passes. But then on top of that, there's the stuff that we don't think about that happens over time. And it's really easy for people to move on and go on with their lives, which they should. And they kind of start to forget, right? Or they assume. And even the other day, I was at the yoga studio having a conversation with one of my members, and she asked me a simple question. And like any time in grief, you can, cry like that or have a moment like that. And she even said, "Oh my gosh, I think I forget, Chrissy. You seem like you're doing so great. You have your businesses, you're doing your thing. When I see you, you're happy. And I forget that this is still going on inside you." And I feel like I feel that way a lot, that it's really easy for people to forget that we show ourselves in a certain way. And I'm very honest still, if I need to cry, I'll cry. But it's really easy to assume. It's so easy to assume where people are at, what they're going through. And this other part of being a widow that I wasn't expecting was almost feeling like I was in a fishbowl. And people want to look at you to see what you're doing and why you're doing it. And you're too happy or you're not sad enough or you're too sad. How are you doing this with your kids? Why would you date again? And you want to look at them and say, talk to me when you've lost, this person. But you try to have empathy even for the way people show up. But it's also, like I said, my story is my story. And at the end of the day, to me, all I would ever want is for anyone to be happy and to find joy again, because we already know that it's hard sometimes to find joy. And actually, finding joy is the one emotion that scares us the most, according to Brene Brown, because when we have joy, we're afraid we're going to lose it. So then to even lose joy and be willing to try to find it again, like, to me, that's brave. That's what we should be doing. And so there's all these pieces, I guess, of realizing the things that no one tells you about. And so I'm 2 years in. I still have a whole lot of layers that I'm peeling back, a lot that I'm figuring out, lots of emotions that come up on a regular basis, things that are hard with kids that are that age, things that are hard with family, and then also things that are very, very beautiful and joyous and bring gratitude. But it's just this kind of, thing that I'm unpacking and assuming that other people are unpacking that same stuff. And it doesn't even have to be grief. But actually, the funny thing about grief is that we think of grief a lot of times just when you're putting a body in the ground. But grief is something that we all experience on a regular basis. And it's another thing that connects us, because we can grieve losing a job. We can grieve a life we thought we were going to live. We can grieve dreams that never came to be. We can grieve our bodies. Like grief in itself is something that all of us are experiencing regularly, and yet it's hard to talk about. And that's what I mean too with cards on the table, is it doesn't just have to be the sunshine and roses, because that's not what most of us even need a lot of times with connecting or witnessing each other. To really witness people is like taking off the mask, speaking our truth, being vulnerable, and that idea of me too. Like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. Me too. I messed this up. Oh my gosh, me too. It's like permission to be in our humanness. So another thing that, I'll share is this grief and gratitude page. It was really easy for me to come back to it every single day. And then all of a sudden it kind of stopped. And I felt like I couldn't tell my story as authentically as I wanted to at that point anymore, without involving others, and what I mean is even telling some parts of the family story, talking about my relationship that some people were ready to hear or not ready to hear, sharing things that were coming up with my kids while respecting their privacy and their wishes because they're older. And so I just kind of paused for a little bit, but I still feel like there's so much story left. And then I got to get to this podcast, and like maybe this is the next part of my story and the next way to keep sharing. And I was reminded when I just went on a retreat, I just came back from this retreat with B1 Yoga, that even if I was scared because I didn't want to tell other people's stories, necessarily, that I still can share from my perspective. And this is my own narrative, my own lens, and I can still tell it while respecting others and making that very clear that it's just my experiences. And I think my advice for all of us, because even coming back from this retreat, what I saw from these women was how amazing it felt to allow themselves to be vulnerable, to allow themselves to share their story, to allow themselves to be seen. Because on top of craving connection and wanting to be seen, we also deeply fear rejection and not being loved and not having people stick by us. And I think the older I get, the more I keep realizing there's a reason they tell us as we're growing up that our circle is going to get smaller, right? Because we become a little bit more particular about who's in our life because we realize the ones who really show up. But I'll also tell you that in my grief, there's an amazing community that showed up for me that aren't my best friends, that aren't my family, that aren't my soul sisters. They're people who just wanted to show up, to be there. So there's people listening, there's people watching, there's people that are ready to step out. And this is where I even come back to like the idea of Gus, something greater than us. I swear sometimes we just have to ask, like I need help or show me the way, and things come up. It's like there's these little angels on earth. And it also brought me to this idea that we live in such an individualistic society. And yet I don't think that's the way we're meant to live. And I prided myself as a mom all the time on doing everything myself. I was the caretaker. I did everything for Brandon. I took care of the kids. I worked, I this, I that. And it was like a badge I wore. And then I'm like, why am I even wearing this badge, right? What even gave me that idea that this is the way we're supposed to live? And when I started to let the community in and let people help, I realized even more that I think that's the way we're supposed to live, to let people in, to let people help us. People want to help. People want to show up, but they also sometimes need to ask permission or be given permission. So I want this to even be like one of those first steps in, I share with you. Hopefully I get to listen to some listeners. I don't know. I'm manifesting big things here, right? And even as the people show up, they do that. So I guess my advice is we all have our stories. And I think that once we start talking, we realize there's a little bit more similarity and connection than we thought. And I think the more we are willing to take our masks off, to speak our truth, the more we let others do the same thing. And that's a beautiful part about, what separates us as human beings from all the other things that live on this planet with us is the way we can think and feel and the depth to our emotions and then the conversations that we can have. And I think that us just starting those conversations is what matters. And it starts small. I mean, our nervous systems are built to protect us, and we have to build the capacity of our nervous systems to get a little uncomfortable, right? Just like we have to build the capacity of our nervous systems to accept the joy, to accept the experiences. There's the discomfort, and there's even discomfort in just simply sharing. It's not just bad things happening to us. So I hope that this is just the beginning. And I really look forward to sharing more with you all. And I know different pieces of my life are going to come out as this goes. And I want to be able to hear parts of yours. So I really hope that you follow the Revel Room. Follow this journey. And I'm open to any ideas that you even have of what you want to hear on a podcast. My girlfriends and I always joke, there's cameras in Revel Luna, right? Because we're a store. And we joke that we sit here on these bar stools or on the couch and we have the most amazing conversations. Or we're at my house on the kitchen floor. We love my kitchen floor. And we're like, that should have been a podcast. That should have been a podcast. We wish that, we had mics on us and we were ready to go. But we know that's not the way it works. But I look forward to bringing them on here so you can even hear our banter. But I also look forward to talking with some of you. So, let me know if there's anything you want to hear more about from me. Let me know if there's a topic you want to discuss. Let me know if you want to be on this podcast. Like anything that I've built, B1, Revel Luna, the now Backspace that's opening. I always say that I start with my idea, my seed, and it kind of grows with other people, with community, and things evolve. So I look forward to even seeing how this evolves. But follow Revel Room. Take one step in sharing a piece of your story with anyone you talk to today. Remember the idea of Sonder. And as you're looking at someone, even if they're not showing up for you in the way you'd love them to, maybe give them a little bit more grace or empathy, reminding yourself that there's a whole universe going on in their world where they're the main character. As much as we want to think we're the main character in everyone's story, we're really not. But it's important to stay true to the main character in our own story and to remind ourselves that people want to do that, right? Look at how much we love movies and theater and everything with main character energy. We even bring that on a podcast and with conversations with each other. So follow the Revel Room, reach out with anything, and let's keep doing this together. Welcome to the Revel Room. Woo!